Hey guys, what is up? My name is TR Kurt, and today we're going to be breaking down the structure of orchestral trailer music and how you need to structure your trailer music to get signed onto trailers, and how editors approach selecting trailer music out of a full library. So we're going to talk about editing points. We're going to talk about in the intro, the outro, Act 3, Act 4, and how you should kind of start off approaching all this, because it can be pretty daunting. So without further ado, we're going to be doing all this, and all the presets in here will be down below in the description for free. They're serum presets, so I hope y'all like that. And super excited for this series. This is part 1 of 3. Part 2 will be mixing, and part 3 will be mastering. But let's get into it.
Showed up.
Thomas.
Why are we different?
What if we were sent here for a reason?
Okay, so we are inside the DAW right now. I am using Logic Pro X. I used to use FL Studio, but now I'm back in Logic. Totally doesn't depend. Like, at least in my experience, it does not matter what DAW you use. I just like this one for my workflow at this point in my career. So, you're here to learn about orchestral music structure. And let's talk about that. What's the most important thing to consider when writing orchestral music? Is it mixing? Is it mastering? Is it uniqueness? Is it like blandness? Is it Brahms? Well, actually, it's none of those. It is editing points. So you might be wondering, if you don't edit, what are editing points? Well, editing points are basically, in the context of this, sound cues that give the editor a point to cut off of. So consider that throughout your whole track structure and your whole creation of the track. You want editing points. The more the better. As an editor looking for orchestral tracks, they're going to be looking for editing points. They're going to want as much flexibility to cut their 2-hour movie into roughly 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is the average duration of trailer music, but they range from 1 minute 30 seconds to 4 minutes and 20 seconds if it's an extended trailer. So, editing points. What are they? We went over that. How do we use them and where to put them? Well, for sure, you're going to want 2 editing points in the beginning and end. The first act and the 5th act. And you have 2 in the first act because usually you have the company's logo pop up and the movie title pop up. In the end, you have the movie title pop up and the release date of the movie, like premiering now or premiering June 31st, something like that. So that is, I guess, 4 editing points you're going to always have, and I will say that they can be anywhere in the trailer. I'm going to play my Act 1 right here, and we're going to see if you can identify the editing points. So that was Act 1 introduction. The 2 editing points, pretty obvious, and the way I visualize tracks are mostly through percussion. So that's kind of why I'm showing y'all the percussion right now, is there's a boom here and a boom here. 2 editing points, perfect. And they don't have to be exactly a certain time code or whatever. They just need to feel right inside your track. So that is the biggest thing with your introduction. Supply the editor with those 2 editing points. If they don't hear that, if they don't hear something familiar that they can edit to, then they're not going to edit. They're not going to select your track to be edited. So I'm going to go over a little bit about this track. We have our percussion, our cymbal, The first boom is a little more quiet. The last boom has a little more power, preparing the audience, keeping it interesting. Epic hit, just something to fill it up. And most of the like sounds are actually coming from the instruments. A little motif right there to fill up the space. Another hit right there. And we're answering the question from the last motif right there. And then so that's the introduction. It's very important because that's going to be the first thing your editor is going to be listening to. Make sure you have those editing points. So now, Act 1, introduction. Act 2, build up. Let's talk a little bit about this. This is, if you mess up your build up, no matter how good your climax is, it's not going to be good because your build up sucks. So let's talk about a little bit about giving your build up some energy. And something that does it for me, and something I really like, is staccatos or arpeggiated sounds. Let's solo these. And these are all made with Serum. I have some free presets below, so definitely go check that. They're almost all this same preset that I created, but they have different effects, and I panned them differently to really fill the space. And you can hear distorted some of them a little bit to give an unstable sound. Also, when you're trying to do a build-up, I would definitely say Endless Smile. If you don't know what it is, you probably don't produce electronic music because it's actually an electronic music plugin. Basically, you spin this knob right here, and it gives your sound, basically turns it into a riser. If you turn it to 100%, your sound's going to be straight up like white noise riser. Let me just show you. So there you go. Gives a lot of energy. That's one of my little secrets to adding energy to your build-ups. Another one is along with the arpeggiators, I have these bass beats. That's all it is. It's just G sharp in the key of the song. And then we have our choir and our flute. These are more atmospheric. They're up here, up higher with atmosphere stuff. So that's how I know. And they're just filling up that empty space. So something that I would possibly consider doing with this track is doubling the amount that Act 2 takes up. Right now it's taking up 8 bars. I would change it maybe to 16, and maybe not bring in the Brahms quite so fast. So maybe we have something like this. And then some more stuff, and then just fade in these. Obviously, your track is gonna obviously vary. Everything's gonna vary, but these are just some things to consider and maybe push yourself towards. So before I get too far into the Act 3, I want to talk a little bit about how I structured this, and I actually structured all this with just some piano, some notes on the piano roll. I'll play that for you right here. So this is also, I forgot to tell you, these ARPs are quantized differently. I can't remember, but I think these are 3/4 quantized in 3/4. Let's do that and see. Nope. But all I know is I quantize them differently to just be able to complete the melody the way I wanted it to be, and with the tempo of at 120 beats per minute. The quantizing for me was just what I needed to do. So as a result, I quantize these notes to fit with the art. It does make a difference. You can hear it if it's not quantized correctly, and the speed of this particular arp does give my sound kind of a different, more suspenseful feel. If I would have shortened it to eighth notes, or it would have sounded a little too fast, and if I did quarter notes, it sounded too slow. So this quantization of these are a little bit different, but that's fine. I probably could have gotten around it by changing my tempo and my time signature, but I just like 4/4 so much because it's something I'm very comfortable with. I have written in 3/4, and it's probably my second favorite one because you can get some pretty suspenseful and interesting rhythms with it. So, Act 1 introduction, Act 2 build up, and before we talk about Act 3, because we're getting there, we're going to talk about this right here. So I call those spacers, and to be honest, the spacer's probably not long enough, and the reason is you usually want your spacers to be very long because the editors will cut your track in half right there at the spacer and move it a little bit left or right and kind of center your camera's up there, and they'll kind of center the spacer to fit usually a line of dialogue right here. This is where you have the dramatic "I killed your father," something like that. Then you have all the action. So these spacers, the reason that I didn't do that for this track is I'm actually writing this score specifically for a trailer that I'm making for a movie that we shot. So I'm just keeping that how it is because I know that's how much I want. But if you're trying to get license, definitely leave that spacer longer. So now we're in the meat of things, and this is not layered at all. I would probably add 10 or 12 more layers and mix this all. This is very minimal mixing and very minimal layering. We're getting into mixing and mastering in the next 2 episodes, so that's something that we're not going to really talk about now, but I will talk about one of the things that I did do is rely heavily on Serum. That's what it is. I think almost all of the leads are in Serum. Sounds like a distorted flute. And you'd be wrong. It's actually Serum sound. And let's talk a little bit about sound design real quick. I know this is more about trailer music structure, but I do want to tell you something. This preset is a modified one that I made, and it has a very interesting sound, and you can hear it right there, but it's not that full. It's kind of airy. Well, if I can find... This is why you need to label your stuff, boys and girls, because if you don't, you just have a bunch of odd titles, and you don't know what is what. But this one's actually labeled. So, now listen to this. So, that is the same thing. I added some mixing and stuff on it, but that's more sound design, not mixing. I haven't mixed it yet. But, if you notice, our envelope here, we were at something like that. And then we changed to something like this. So when it comes to sound design and stuff, and you're trying to make a sound, a lot of people go crazy. They start changing all this and everything, and they do crazy stuff to filter. They layer their sound like to 8 or 16 unisons, and that's great. You can do that. But a lot of times what you're looking for is your envelope, which is controlling everything. It's controlling how your sound moves through the track. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to modify your envelope. So this is the drop, and let's talk a little bit about the structure of the Act 3 climax, or as I like to call it, the drop. Play through it real quick. play the next spacer in a little bit, but I want to talk about something that you might notice with this EQ, and it is that when the percussion hits, it drives all spectrums. And that's something I really wanted with this track, is I knew I wanted a big percussive sound, and what better way to do that than with layering your percussion. And you can see right here, I layered it so much that I wanted to process my claps differently, because they are a big part of this. This is almost like I'm almost treating these claps like a snare in trap music, which is pretty interesting. But they're the response to the hit, and they kind of keep everything going if you listen to it without the claps. Still sounds good, but it's missing that. You can feel it in the sound. We're missing the response to all the calls that we're making, and there they are right there. So as far as percussive goes, keep it interesting, but also keep it simple and easy to follow, and do variations, but do small things. You don't have to do crazy variations. For example, this right here, we're approaching the end of climax 1, so we're gonna act like we are and put in some risers and put in some crazy percussion. So we'll have something like this. Let me just solo it for y'all. And we even have the claps. So here we go. Alright, so you can kind of tell right there, just playing the percussion, everything sounds good, so you know it's gonna fit with your instrumentation, because it's already fitting with itself. A lot of times people will go a little crazy and the percussion's just everywhere and it's not fitting with itself. Here it's fitting with itself, so it's gonna be easier to fit with our instruments. And I wrote this whole melody right here, and I changed the back so much. I just ended up making new midis for it because I was tired of clicking each MIDI. So that's what I did there. And we come to our spacer 2 and our climax 2. I actually haven't written climax 2 for this, but something that I would do for this is I'd copy all these instruments over. I copy all the percussion over. And then what a lot of times I end up doing is keeping some of the instruments, deleting some, and then adding a lot more, not filling instruments, but more atmospheric or like higher pitched instruments that aren't taking up a lot of room in the track, just adding something new to the track. So that's what I like to do with the second one. I might take that ARP that we had in the beginning and move it over right here. That could maybe do some interesting things. And then I would modify the percussion. I actually do like keeping almost the same percussion throughout, with just modifications, and that's kind of right here. I just have it copied and pasted, no modifications, because this is all I have. Right here, I'll show you. So that's what's going on there with the percussion, and that's really all I can talk about climax 2 because I haven't written anything for it. But let's talk about the spacer, and this is where editors will definitely want to select your track. Is it when you have spacers like these that give them a lot of leeway in creating more, making everything feel more intense. You can see right here we have a downers and then a riser, a boom, and then a up. So there's so much editing points there. There's so much ups and downs going on, and when you're making a trailer, that's what you want. You want all that energy. You want the energy to change down, up. Because you're trying to make everything seem so interesting with your movie. So that's what we did, or that's what I did, and I just added the spacer, and it consists of some hits, a big stop, flat, and reversing. And something that I would go through and probably do is start, like, take this clip, make it unique, reverse it, and put it right there, and see how that sounds. And usually you'll end up liking that because it creates like a sucking feeling of like anticipation or something. So that's Act 4, climax, with our spacer. Now Act 5, the outro, and that will be my outro also. So with Act 5, your outro, you don't want to mess this up either. You don't want to mess any of it up, but you don't want to specifically mess up your message that you've been telling, or the story you've been telling. This is like the last page in your book. You're not gonna kill a major character in your last page of your book, usually, unless you're writing a sequel or something. Well, the same applies here. We're not going to add a new melody or something. We might add a variation of a motif we have, but we're gonna create a sense of closure most of the time, or suspense, but nothing extreme going on. Because remember, we need those two key editing points as well. And if we fill our mix up with everything, then we don't really have those editing points to cut on, because it's just a full, you've probably seen it, a full red line. Your whole wave file is just red lined at 0 decibels across the thing, and then you have a hit come in and you're like, I can't, I'm an editor, I can't hear that hit, I don't know what's it cut on, I'm not using this track. So just remember that. And I encourage y'all to watch some trailers with music, and watch some trailers without any dialogue and only music. So for example, I like to watch the Blade Runner trailers for inspiration. I'll go look up Blade Runner trailer and I'll watch it with dialogue, and then I'll go later on and look up the Blade Runner trailer, but only the music for it, and kind of hear what's going on and be like, oh yeah, I saw the editing point. Oh, that's how they did that sound. I really liked how they used a horn as an editing point, and now I can consider using horns as editing points in my. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you liked this. I hope it was informative, and if you have any suggestions down below, feel free to send them my way. And if you saw something I did and you're like, hey, I do this other way and it's actually faster for me, definitely send that over, because I love to learn from other people, and that's part of the reason why I'm starting this channel, is to learn from y'all. So thank you so much. Hope you like this. Go grab yourself those free serum presets, and have a great day.